that the Department of Labor has to try to make this rule. This should be something done by Congress. But they're incompetent. They can't do their job, and they're being paid huge amounts of money to run for re-election by the banks. That they're not going to go and do this. So we had to have the Department of Labor push this through. John Oliver talks about it some more here.
And while the rule has gone through anyway, 5 lawsuits have been filed by financial services groups attacking it, and legislators in the House and Senate have passed a resolution trying to overturn that fiduciary rule, although just a few days ago the president did veto it.
Yeah, so the president had to veto a law to overturn the new ruling from the Department of Labor. So the Department of Labor has stuck their necks out to try to do what is right for the investor, to do what virtually every other modern country in the world does. If you hire an attorney, you assume they work for you. If you hire a doctor, you can assume that they're trying to do what's in your best interest. Can these people make mistakes? Of course. Can the outcomes still be bad? Of course. But in the investment world, where you can save for 20, 30, 40, or maybe even 50 years, the person can put their interest above yours, and all they've got to do is sell something to you that is qualified as suitable, and that doesn't really have much of a definition, so they can do kind of whatever you want. So go check that out. The whole thing is about 23 minutes. John Oliver, last week tonight, I guess the official title is Retirement Plans. So go check that out. I've also seen it under Money, but go check that out. Now, at the end, he does this big build-up that if you don't have any money today, when you finally do get some money, come back and listen to this last minute or two. And for me, the whole thing just kind of fell apart. You watch it. Let me know what you think. It turned into, I mean, I understand they've got to be funny, but it seemed kind of crude and crass. I know coming from me, but calling people stupid and picking on them, and that's not what we want. This is complicated stuff, and no one is getting paid to tell you how to do it. And quite frankly, the industry doesn't want you to understand. So I was really kind of saddened by the approach that they took to kind of belittle people and make it, crass, I guess. I don't know what else to say. So take a watch and enjoy the whole thing. And then let me know what you think of the last 2 or 3 minutes. Do you agree or not that he just kind of went off the rails there? He had an opportunity to really make an impact and give some people some really good basic things. And there's a couple of nuggets in there, but it could have been so much more. So that's the only thing that I saw about it negative. Otherwise, very funny, very entertaining, and basically everything they said was factually accurate. So go check it out. And we're going to do a little commercial break, and then we're going to talk, unfortunately, about the mass shooting in Orlando.
Only on Secular Media Network.
Here's an excerpt from The Complete Heretic's Guide to Western Religion, The Mormons, by David Fitzgerald.
Although the church does not disclose its finances, it has long been widely recognized as the wealthiest church per capita in America. Time magazine put the church's total assets at a minimum of $30 billion in 1997. In their 1999 book, Mormon America, investigative journalists Richard and Joan K. Osling conservatively estimated church assets at least $25 to $30 billion, adding it was likely well beyond that. The church criticized these numbers as excessive, but without offering any hint of what the real figures might be. The church's financial growth is fueled by sacred taxation, i.e., tithing. To be in good standing, all faithful Mormons must tithe, that is, give 10% of their gross, not net, income to the church. And it's not unheard of for Mormons to pay a double tithe. The Osling's research concluded that as of the mid-1990s, annual tithing revenue was likely between $4.25 and $5.3 billion. That's billion with a B, not an M, annually. The Oslings also found that in addition, the church also owns a surprisingly large amount of lucrative commercial investments, managed mostly through its Deseret Management Corporation. These holdings bring in another estimated $600 million annually. They include an estimated $6 billion or more in stock and bonds, several insurance companies including Beneficial Life, a company with $16 billion in insurance and assets of $1.6 billion. Media holdings including Bonneville International Corporations, which owns a chain of 25 radio stations, 7th largest in the country, a television station, and other media operations. Hawaii Reserves, which manages extensive real estate developments in Hawaii, such as the Disney-esque tourist trap, Polynesian Cultural Center, the major source of PCC's labor force, Brigham Young University, Hawaii, and more than 150 farms and ranches, including the largest cattle ranch in America, making the LDS Church one of the biggest landowners of the nation, with around 1 million acres of farm and ranch land, roughly equal to the size of the state of Delaware. Incidentally, the church's religious buildings and property, like the magnificent Salt Lake City Temple, are considered expenses and not sources of revenue. A big focus of church funds is on their humanitarian efforts. Every year, tens of millions of dollars are donated to carry out outreach activities in 178 countries, which also happen to contribute to church growth. And like many religions, it claims to be the fastest growing religious sect in the world. But where did this tax-exempt multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation come from?
The Complete Heretic's Guide to Western Religion, The Mormons, by David Fitzgerald, is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
This is Phil Ferguson with Polaris Financial Planning, the home of science-based investing. I see people owning really bad investments all of the time. Many advisors are paid a commission by a big company to sell you something you may not need. It's kind of like church. They create fear, then they tell you what you want to hear, and then they take your money. What you want is an advisor that is paid only by you. That is a fee-only fiduciary advisor. Remember, people work for who they are paid by. You can contact me, Phil, at polarisfinancialplanning.com, or listen to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. Each show, we have an interesting investing skeptically topic and an interview with someone fighting to end religion. Polaris also gives 10% of gross revenue to support the growing secular movement. You're not just getting better investments, you're helping to change the world.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show on Secular Media Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. And with me today is another special guest. They're all so special. James Croft. James, are you there?
I am here, Phil. It's good to talk to you.
Oh, it's good to talk to you again. And for those who don't know, James Croft is one of my many convention buddies. We've met each other for years and years and years on the road.
Absolutely. We keep running into each other at conventions, and people are going to start to talk if we keep meeting like that, Phil.
Well, I could do worse.
You certainly could. And probably a lot better as well.
I don't know. It was funny in the pre-show, which the listeners don't get to hear. We talked about that you have a very slight accent.
Well, it shouldn't be too slight. People tell me that I'm losing it. I've been in the United States now for 9 years. So people tell me I'm losing my accent, which always makes me very sad. But I'm from London, England, and that's where my accent was born and bred.
Well, it was kind of funny. The last time I was in Italy, I had multiple people tell me that my Italian has a British accent.
That's so strange.
I know.
Did you learn Italian in England?
Well, not in England, but apparently one or more of the programs that I use to learn Italian, of course, you always want the language that you're learning to be spoken by a native speaker.
Quite right.
They probably are also fluent in English, and they probably learned it in England.
Huh.
And so
interesting.
It would slightly roll over, and their Italian pronunciations might be ever so slightly different to the point that I could never see or hear the difference, but they could. That one or more of the people I've been listening to and reciting them aren't speaking in genuine, true native Italian. There's a little bit of a British accent in it.
Well, you probably have some of your American accent kind of blending in as well, because it's very difficult to get rid of our home accents when we're speaking a different language.
And I've listened to people that English is their first language, that are fluent in Italian. I understand them really, really well. But
they speak the same inflected Italian that you do.
That's right, and I can hear it really well. But I've also tried to talk to people from Sicilia. Oh, that's the song. Sicily.
Yes.
The island part of Italy, and they would always tell me it's a different dialect, and I'm like, what does that mean? It means it's a different fucking language. It's
quite different.
It's very, very difficult for me to do. I remember we were on this tour, and there's this guy named Prospero, and he would talk to me, and I would just smile and nod and try to pick out words. And I told some other Italians that I couldn't understand anything that he said, and they said, neither can we.
Well, at least you're in good company.
Yep. So anyway, James, before we get to the heavy stuff, let's celebrate some good news. You finished your degree and you have a job. Talk to me.
Yes. So I completed my doctorate from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, so I'm Dr. Croft now. And that only took me 8 years.
Wow.
8.5 years, I guess. So I feel pretty good about having that out of the way. And I just did commencement last month, and that was extremely exciting. Steven Spielberg came to speak to us, so that was fun. And then in addition to that, I started officially working for the Ethical Society of St. Louis. I spent a year with them working 2014 to 2015. And then I had to switch from a student visa to a work visa, and it took them 11 whole months to process that work visa. And then on the week of my commencement from Harvard, I got the email saying they had finished that process and I could be given a work visa. So that was just one of the best weeks ever. It was great. I got to pick up my degree, and I knew that I got to stay in America and do the work that I absolutely love at the Ethical Society of St. Louis.
Oh, that is so... And we happened to run into... You were in Chicago, right?
I was in Chicago for the American Humanist Association's annual conference, where I was speaking on a panel.
Yeah, that was days after you learned all this information.
Yes, it was an extraordinarily busy week because I was in New York for my final meeting as a trainee to be an ethical culture leader, which is what we call the professional leaders of our communities.
Of your order?
And yes, exactly. Of our humanistic congregational order. And I found out that week that I had been certified as an ethical culture leader. That's what they call it when you finish all the training. So that happened. And then I did commencement in Boston, and I was in Chicago for the AHA conference. So it was a very, very long week and a half, but a great one because 3 big things happened for me. So I'm feeling fantastic. Or I was feeling fantastic until the early hours of Sunday morning.
I understand, and we'll get to that in a minute because I don't want to come back to all the wonderful things that are going on when we kind of dig into that. So, new, big, better job, and now you're in charge of St. Louis?
I am one of 2 full-time leaders that we have. We're a 400-person or so member congregation in St. Louis, Missouri, humanist congregation, non-theistic. And we have 2 full-time leaders who play a role very similar to clergy, except that we don't teach that anything we say is infallible or inspired by God. We just give our hopefully wise and thoughtful takes on ethical and existential questions, and nobody listens to what we have to say. And they all disagree with it, which is exactly how it should be, because we don't want to be unquestionable authorities. We want to be members of a community who are striving to live the best life we can. So I'm one of 2 leaders there.
It's one of those things that, we have a Unitarian church here in Champaign-Urbana, which is as close as I get to an ethical society in my area.
Right.
And we've gone there sometimes, and like you said, everyone has a different opinion. Sometimes I wish they were more skeptical, and I'm not even going to ask you because I don't want to put you in a position where you might talk negatively about somebody, but I do love the society, and I love the building. It's a very neat and fun building. And
isn't it cool?
It allows other groups, like skeptics and humanists, to also have meetings. It's a very nice facility.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily beneficial for communities to have spaces where humanists and atheists and skeptic groups can meet. It's a role that we play in St. Louis very often. We have a large building